the Orthopedic Diabetic Medicare Foundation, and we put a fun upper on it to make it fashionable. And it was quirky, it was ugly, it was just different enough where people said to me, you know what? I can buy one shoe. And they would say, I just want to buy it in black and brown. I went, nope. If you're going to buy it, you got to buy the colors. And they said, well, how many pair I have to buy? I said, you got to buy 72. They said, I can't buy 72. I said, well, then don't buy it.
Hi, this is Brad Henry. On the podcast, we have stories about the underdog. I've had a lot of victory, but more tragedy in my life has made me very compassionate and perceptive on those who struggle, but those who are not willing to give up. And these stories will hopefully inspire you to become more and be more in life, to give you hope, to know that victory can be right around the corner. And hopefully today's story will be that one to put you in a great mindset to know that everything in life is attainable with persistence and hope. So thank you for listening today, and I think you will really enjoy our channel. Folks, I have on with me today Scott Cates. He's been a friend for over 25 years.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur, crazy like me, very charismatic, brilliant, and he never gives up. And that's the type of stories that we want on our show is how do you come back from adversity? And he's done that a number of times. So, Scott, great to have you on the show today, and it's good to see you.
It is a thrill, Brad. Thank you. To be on here with you is very special.
Your resume is incredible with everything you've done in the shoe business and NASCAR, owning your own company. But you used to kick a football, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I didn't add that on the list.
Brad. I know. You told me that in the coach once.
Yeah, I played high school football, and then my coach told me I'd never make it in college. And when somebody tells me I can't do something, it's like they might as well stick a blowtorch up my butt. So I played football in my first 2 years of college, and then walked on at a Division I school, and there were 7 guys on the roster with scholarships to kick a football. And I said, yeah, I think it's time for me just to stay on my educational course. So that's what I did. So anyway,
but you had a long field goal or a long punt. It's something like 54 yards.
This is embarrassing to say this, Brett. I kicked a 52-yarder against Fayetteville State when but that was when a straight-on kicker. I was the last of the Tom Dempsey type kickers where you kick straight on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I learned later on I could kick further soccer style, but I wasn't as accurate. So anyway, I was the last of the. As a matter of fact, somewhere in a box in my storage unit is that shoe.
Really?
Yeah, the blunt toe shoe with the foam in the back.
Yeah. It looks like he had a deformed foot.
Well, Tom Dempsey did. He only had a half a foot. You remember that?
Yeah.
So anyway, that was then, but that was kind of one of the many things that when somebody tells me you can't do it, that kind of lights a fire under me a little bit.
That can either spur somebody on to greatness or it can kill them.
You're right.
That's why a coach or a parent or a boss has such great influence over someone.
Very much so. You're right. Yeah, I agree.
You started out really in the shoe business, right?
Yeah, I've been selling shoes since Masters weekend of 1977 is when I started.
Were you there at the Masters or?
No, I was. The reason I say Masters weekend, I always remember.
Oh,
that was the weekend that I started selling shoes. I showed up at a shoe store and they hired me to work stock, and the owner came out that morning and they just had the sales meeting, and he said, Scott, can you work on the floor? I said, I can do whatever you want me to do. He said, do you own a tie? I said, sure I do. He said, could you go get it? So he threw me the keys to his car. And I got in the car and I headed down Friendly Avenue in Greensboro, and my parents were out of town that weekend. And I pulled up in the driveway, and as soon as I walked in the house, this is pre-cell phones, the phone was ringing, and I picked it up and I said hello, and this young lady said, "Scott." I said, "Yeah." She said, "This is Jindy, the manager of Eli Thomas." I said, "Hey, Jindy." She said, "How old are you?" I said, 15. She goes, "You don't have your driver's license, do you?" I said, "No." And she said, "Get your butt back here. Don't wreck his car."
You
And I brought
were
my tie back.
15?
I was 15, but I had been driving for 2 years because I had a paper route. And a buddy of mine, and we take turns driving every morning. He'd drive one morning, I'd drive the next. And I wasn't old enough. He was 17, I was 15. And so anyway, I got back to the store, and I had my tie on, and it was baptism under fire. They threw me to the wolves, and I started selling shoes on the sales floor. And I'm 2 years away from 50 years of doing it.
You didn't say no when
Yeah.
you said, "Tell me, and I'll do whatever."
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is Scott Cates.
Yeah. It is.
That's the DNA of a successful person that doesn't give up.
Thank you.
I mean, to
Yeah.
be 15, not being able to drive a car and yet go get a tire. That is amazing. So, did you start out commission or?
Yeah. Straight commission. And well, hourly rate. And the gentleman who he's a family friend now, and has been for years, he told me, he said, if I hire you for hourly rate, I don't need you. He said, if I pay you hourly rate, I don't need you. He said, I need you to make commission. And what's interesting about commission, and they don't do that much anymore in stores, which I wish they did. I think you get better salespeople. I think what was interesting is that I always worked the best hours, like 6 to 9 at night. That's when people were buying shoes,
Ah,
not from 9 to 5 in the afternoon. So I always got to work the best times and the best rates, and I enjoyed it absolutely. So what's interesting, fast forward to college, when I graduated from college, 6 months before I graduated, I had a job in the shoe industry. So it was nice because all my buddies who were bankers and this, that, and the other, they were all going into jobs making 14 to 16,000 a year, and I was starting at 40. And they used to call me Al Bundy. So because I was in the shoe business, everybody used to laugh at me. How in the world would anybody want to sell shoes? And
that was a lot of money.
well, the
It,
footwear
it-
industry is a
yeah.
very small industry, but it's an industry. If you think about it, it's like Kleenex. It's an annuity. Everybody needs shoes.
Ah, right.
And and if you find the right product, I mean, look how long Crocs and look how long Birkenstock and look how long brands like that have sustained themselves. So it's a very good industry. It's changed a lot over the years, but yeah, it's been good to me.
So
Yeah,
when you said the first job, was it at a store or was it
yeah, yeah.
territory?
No, it was my first retail job was in a store, and then when I graduated, 6 months before I graduated from college, I had a job with the men's division of USU, and it's awfully nice graduating from college knowing you got a job. Kind of unfortunately didn't do so good on those last exams because I knew I was
I
I
never
knew I
got
was
to the last exam.
well, at least you're honest about it. I always knew I had a job, so I was pretty good about that. But yeah, I started, and it was funny. The first territory I was ever given was Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia. They had offered it to 5 different salesmen, and everybody said no. And I said, sure, I'll take it. And then it was like the guy who went to Africa and said, oh my gosh, nobody over here wears shoes. What an opportunity. So that's how I was. Tennessee, and West Virginia, and that was my very first territory.
Now,
Right.
how did you get involved with getting the shoe to Michael Jackson on GQ?
Michael Jordan,
Or
Brad.
Michael Jordan, I'm
There
sorry.
is a significant difference. Okay. Um,
One's
uh,
taller. Yeah.
yeah, I, through the years, I was with USU, then I was with Bally of Switzerland, which was a very high-end product at the time. Matter of fact, if you remember, well, you probably wouldn't know this, but Bally was the second largest producer of footwear in the world at one time. and they had thousands of retail stores. It was a very high-end luxury item. And I left, and the industry is probably very much like the industries you've been associated with. Everybody knows everybody, and it's very well connected, and it's very small actually. And the my former boss at USU went to Bali, which is where he contacted me, and I came to Bali. And then one of the reps that I worked with called me one day, and he said, "There's this little tiny startup company out of Spain called Meslin, and they're creating
Oh,
shoes that look like the best shoes in the world, but they're 100 to 150 to $200 cheaper, and they're made in Spain, which at that time was an up and coming footwear place for men, especially. They had taken a lot of the craftsmanship from Italy and they'd moved it to Spain. And long story short, in the 90s, we were making incredible shoes, very aggressive, very fashionable, a lot of exotic skins, alligators, lizards, ostrich. And the NBA had a dress code back then. They had to dress, they had to wear coats and ties when they traveled. So the players had to wear dress clothes, which meant dress shoes. And a lot of the NBA players obviously had big feet. The average player
oh,
wore a 16. Well, we made shoes in our little factory in Spain up to size 22.
wow.
So there was one particular store in Atlanta, Georgia called Friedman Shoes. It is famous for selling shoes to the athletes, and they were my account. And I built a business with them that eclipsed $2 million back in the early 90s, 92, 93, 94. And their primary clientele were professional athletes. And what was interesting is I got a call on Sunday in my office one day. I was cutting the grass, and the owner of the company, Antonio, called me and said, "Have you seen this month's GQ magazine?" I said, "No, why?" He said, "Well, Michael Jordan, Jerry Seinfeld, and Mel Gibson are on the cover. And Michael's wearing a pair of our shoes. And he's wearing a pair that he purchased at retail in a store in Chicago." And Brad, I kid you not, the barometric pressure in our warehouse changed.
Oh,
You could, your ears were popping.
oh,
That changed everything. That was like having your product show up on the New York Times or something. It just changed everything. The fact that the most popular athlete in the world was wearing our product made a huge difference, and it propelled us to a very big place
they
very
were
quickly.
awesome. You took us to the warehouse, I believe, out in California,
Yeah, yeah, good memory.
and
Yeah,
got us some great deals on shoes, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
lasted me like 10 years. Oh, they were phenomenal.
Well, let's be honest. That's what got me to NASCAR. As you know, people wanted to be associated with people want to be associated with better product, and NASCAR was going through a very aggressive time, and they wanted to be associated with better product. Chocolates and bumpers, stickers, and diecast cars had kind of run their course a little bit.
Right.
So they want to be associated with things. So that's when I came up with this bright idea to do a belt and a buckle. And I crafted it and
That's
I
cool.
made every mistake possible. But I do not know who suggested HLG, but that's when you and I and Reed met. And that's what happened. And you guys,
Mhm.
you guys wanted to be associated with good product. And we made great product. We really did.
Right, right.
And but I got the owner of the company to convince him that we needed to take one of our belt factories in Spain and create a belt. And of course, it was way too expensive than it should have been. But the belts out of Asia, out of China, were the ones we sold. But what we found out, once again, you don't learn by succeeding; you learn by failing. That is that is the
Man,
God's honest truth.
yeah. And
And the more you
if
fail,
you're
sometimes the more you
oh,
succeed.
if you're afraid to fail, you're never going to make it.
Yeah, I'm in. I totally agree. So anyway, long story short, once again, the belts failed miserably. But and Bubba and Earl, who were the main proprietors of NASCAR products at the time, and I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but I respect the industry and I respect the sport tremendously. Um, they don't wear belts, and we sold more belts to women than we did to men. But What
Interesting.
happened was we got those belts, if you remember, into Belk. We got them into 300 Belk stores, along with calendars, along with Boyd's teddy bears,
Yes.
along with Christmas ornaments. We got a lot of
Right.
product,
You controlled
and
that whole category. If that,
we had a significant amount of product in a significant amount of locations, and that's actually where my connection with QVC started. That's where that's I learned through. Remember, they used to have the show for race fans only.
yes.
Okay, with Tim Bertoli and
And George.
Todd Smith,
Okay.
and those guys. You guys introduced me to that world, but I got involved with it, and we had some tremendous successes. Boyd's Teddy Bears was $100
Oh.
million with uh,
Oh.
with QVC, and now they don't sell any, zero,
Are they
and that
still in
show
business?
no, no, that shows you how things have changed. People don't buy collectibles anymore.
Oh.
After 9/11, people's value systems changed, and people don't buy the collectibles like they used to. I mean, they still do, but nothing like it used to be. But Boyd's was the Kleenex of collectibles and stuffed bears at one time. And you remember all those teddy bears with the 24 jumpsuits and the three jumpsuits
Oh,
and
you
the
got him in the, you were sharp enough to get him in the actual race car.
oh,
So
we
when
go.
so when
I was hoping you wouldn't go down that road. I don't know if do you remember that story?
oh yeah, it's crazy.
Ooh, that got me in a lot of trouble, but it also got us in it got a lot of exposure.
Better to
It
ask
got
forgiveness than permission.
and that's exactly what we did. But I got to tell you something. We backdoored those bears. We had them duct taped in 7 or 8 cars during the All-Star race. And that was the weekend that Joe Gibbs Racing launched Shrek. And they had spent, as you know, you were involved with that, they had spent a significant amount of money on the 20 and the 18 car launching Shrek. And Scott and Renee got these fuzzy little teddy bears duct taped in the cars on the roll bars. And that was right when Fox came into the picture and they had the in car cameras. And regardless of the millions of dollars that were being put behind Shrek that weekend, every time that camera zoomed in to the inside the car on Fox, guess what they saw? A teddy bear.
That is so.
And when Jeff Gordon went upside down in turn one of the All Star race and slid across the track and onto the infield in his car for 30 seconds on primetime TV on a Saturday night, all you saw was an upside down number 24 Boyd's teddy bear. And I remember when they told us your relationship with NASCAR will end unless you apologize, promise never, ever to do this, backdoor this, and we'd like for you to give the money to charity. And we auctioned off those bears with Joe Mattis and
Oh,
and we raised a significant amount of money for burned teddy bears for Make a Wish Foundation. Yeah, that was very special. But there is nothing pretty about a singed, burned teddy bear, Brad. It's pretty sad to be honest with you.
well, you tried it. And like us, our company went down when certain drivers switched teams and sales went down and we all had to reinvent ourselves. And
Yes, we did.
that's when you got back into the business again, but you had a round route to get there again.
Yeah, I mean, I was going through a very difficult divorce, and
Yeah.
I was in a very precarious situation financially, and I came to. It's hard to talk about, but I came to you and Reed, and I said, "Man, it's a tough time right now, and I'm not sure what to do." And both of you shared with me your personal stories and your personal walk and your faith, which I deeply, deeply appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that gave me the strength to make a decision. And bankruptcy is not an easy decision, but it's the decision I had to make, and it changed my life. It was tough, but it was something I had to go through, and I went through it thanks to you guys kind of giving me the confidence to do it. And
Thank
then
you.
I decided shortly thereafter that it was probably a smart idea to get back to my roots, and I got back in the shoe business. And after several trial and error steps, getting back in the shoe business. What's interesting, Brad, to this day, nobody knows I left. Nobody in my industry knows that I left for 4 years. And that just shows you everybody's replaceable and everybody is
Isn't that the truth?
yeah, and I left for 4 years and nobody really knew I was gone. And then I came back and I had learned so much. The NASCAR experience with you guys had taught me about licensing, had taught me about larger retail, Walmart, Kmart. Uh,
Yep.
I could go on and on about the retailers we were involved with, QVC.
Yep.
And it really gave me the confidence. So when I came back to the shoe business, I was a different person. I had a different mentality. I looked at things differently. I did not look at them the way I did when I was in the shoe business before. I had a much broader spectrum of vision. And I ended up in a very small company in California that I didn't realize at the time, but it was almost out of business. And they had had four reps in the Southeast, and everyone had failed. And they said, "We want to hire you." And I said, "Well, if you pay a draw, I could probably make it work." They said, "We'll give you a draw for 4 months." And I said, "4 months?" They said, "And that's it." I said, "Wow." I said, "Would you pay my travel expenses?" They said, "Only up to a certain level." I said, "Okay." So basically, they came out with shoe, one shoe. And this was in 2007, 2008, right when the economy had tanked. And the last thing anybody wanted was another line of footwear that was starting up. And the company had been around a long time. They were from the orthopedic, Medicare, diabetic business, and they knew what they were doing. They just, the shoes were just, the average age was deceased for the customer. So it wasn't a product that you and I would ever
Ah,
acknowledge or even know about. And they smelled bad of rubber and oh, it was just terrible. So anyway,
ah.
interestingly enough, I went to the sales meeting in Santa Monica, California in December of '07. And as I was sitting there, this young lady walked in and I looked at her and looked at her again. I said, "Carol?" She said, "Scott?" I said, "What are you doing here?" She says, "I designed this shoe for Johnny, the owner of the company." And I said, "What is it?" She said, "It's called Allegra." And she said, "That's my daughter's name." She said, "It's called Alegria."
Oh,
I said, "Where did the name come?" She goes, "Well, we were going to name it after my daughter, Allegra, but there is a sinus medication out there named that. So we couldn't do Allegra. We had to do Alegria, which was the next name in the thing. And Alegria means joy and happiness in Spanish. So, and every one of the soles had the little butterfly on them.
oh,
And the mariposa is which they call it. The butterfly in Spanish is called mariposa. So basically, they Carol went to Italy. The owner of the company found one shoe, a clog, and it was in black and brown. And it was a department store in Asia had sold 1 million pairs of the one shoe. And he took it and he went to Italy, and Carol took it to Italy to the footwear material show in Mecum. And she came back with 22 colors: giraffe, patent leather, yellow,
wow.
blue, and yes, black and brown too. But she came back with all these fun fashion colors. And this was the time in the industry when you had Birkenstock, Mephisto, MBT. You had all these comfort brands that were marketing themselves with a rocker bottom. And it was an interesting time in the industry, but nobody was really doing fashion. Everybody was doing function, but no
Uh,
fashion. Well, what we did is we took function. We took the Orthopedic Diabetic Medicare Foundation and we put a fun upper on it to make it fashionable. And it was quirky. It was ugly. It was, it was, it was just different enough where people said to me, you know what? I can buy one shoe. And they would say, I just want to buy it in black and brown. I went, nope. If you're going to buy it, you got to buy the colors. And they said, well, how many pair I have to buy? I said, you got to buy 72. They said, I can't buy 72. I said, well, then don't buy it. I said, but what's interesting, Brad, I actually bent my rules and I sold people 18, 36 pair, whatever they wanted to buy.
Right.
But when they bought it in black and brown, it failed. But when they bought it in giraffe or yellow or pink or whatever, it succeeded. And it's kind of like McDonald's. McDonald's flips burgers the same way every single day.
Yeah.
And if you do the same thing, if you do it right, it's going to work. It's just a matter of how it's presented. And when people came in stores, they could see this shoe and they would see the yellows or the blues or the giraffe, and they would come to it and they would probably buy black and brown. But when I sold just black and brown, people failed because nobody would even see the shoe. So long story short, all of a sudden, nurses, teachers, people in the service industry,
Nurses, my God, yeah.
they started wearing our shoes and nobody could say the name. They called it Algeria, Alegria. They called it everything. And you know what? That was okay. At least they were calling it something. At least they were buying the shoes. And there was a lot of cooler chat. You know, women at midnight in the emergency room or in the neonatal unit were all talking to each other about these ugly little shoes they were wearing that were so comfortable.
It was grown organically.
It was organic. This company was not a marketing company. They were not an advertising company. They were a simple orthopedic footwear company that knew how to make a really good shoe. And I was hungry and I had 22 states and I left and I'd be gone for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And it was a journey, but nobody could say no. And everybody tried it. So, and what's interesting in the world that we live in that I live in with footwear, everybody talks to each other. The retailers talk to each other. Oh, how are you doing with that Alegria shoe? You mean Algeria? No, Alegria? Yes. And all of a sudden everybody started talking. And next thing you know, we had sold 3 containers of these shoes before they had even arrived. We brought in 18,000 pair, 3 containers of 6,000 each. And I personally had sold 17,500 pairs of those out of the entire sales force. And we had 20 people on the sales team. And I sold almost 95% of those on my own.
So tell me, after 4 months, where were you?
What do you mean? Where was
As
it?
far as financially with the draw?
Well, I mean, I came out of the draw in 4 months. I mean, I was off the draw in 4 months. And I mean,
Amen.
I went from a zero volume. I think the first year I did million seven, million nine, something like that. And then the next year I did 4.8. Then the next season I did 7.6. Then I did 9 point, and to be very honest with you, I don't mind sharing this with you. I capped out at 24 million. That's where we finally peaked at. For me personally, the company capped out right short of 50 million.
But you're half. My goodness, what?
So this thing went from 0 to 60 in a very short amount of time, and everybody was very hungry for something new and different. And we changed the industry for a while. We really did. We made a huge impact on the consumer because she was getting something extremely comfortable and good for her. We also created the footbed that was in the shoe was replaceable and removable so she could refurbish her shoes. It was like they say this on QVC. We were kind of the first sustainable brand of footwear because you could take the footbed and replace it for $19 and you could have a brand new pair of shoes again. Wow. And at that time the shoes were $99. Yeah. But here's one of the most interesting things. Through my relationship with NASCAR and you guys, I had spent a lot of time in Westchester, Pennsylvania at QVC. And I went to call on them the first fall that Alegria was out. So fall of 2008. And I knew the buyer because I had worked with her from a distance with the NASCAR thing. And she said to me, she said, we're going to buy 6 of these colors and we're going to buy 2,500 pair and we're going to pay this for it and we're going to sell it for this. Are you okay with that? And I didn't say anything. She said, Scott, I said, I got to think about this. I'm not really sure. And she didn't have many people tell her no. So I left there that day. And the gentleman who was with me was the sales manager at the time, Jim Simpson. And Jim said, Scott, how can we not take this order? I said, I don't think we're ready. He said, what do you mean? I said, we only got one shot. If we mess this up, we'll never get another shot again. And I don't think we're ready. We're
That's
not
the
ready to,
perspective.
we're not ready to do this yet.
Yeah.
And I told her that, and she was a little bit put out, to be honest with you. She wasn't happy with me. And I sat back and we kept growing the business. And 2 years later, I get a call right
Oh,
before one of the national shoe shows in Las Vegas.
2 years.
2 years. And Lauren Smith was her name, a great person. And Lauren said to me, Scott, this is Lauren Smith for QVC. I said, hey, Lauren, how you doing? She said, are you ready? I said, yes, we're ready. So we met in Vegas and they bought one shoe from me, not the one that I had originally showed them, not the clog. They bought a Mary Jane, a shoe with a little
A
strap over
different
the
color.
front, a different shoe, but the same foundation. And she said, we're going to give you a shot. We're going to buy the same amount of pairs, but we want a Mary Jane pattern. And we're going to give you your launch on AM Style, which was the number 1 show on QVC at the time, which was on Saturday mornings.
Wow.
And I went through the training on air. And she said, we want you to do the show. I went, me? I'm not a TV person. I'm just a shoe salesman. She said, no, but you have the passion and you know your stuff. And I think you do a great job. So I know I'm talking a lot. So just,
No, no, no. I'm excited. I'm hanging on every.
so here was this was probably the quintessential QVC experience. I showed up on Friday night. The show was at 7 a.m. the next morning. And I was on at like 7:24. And I got there so early in the morning. I got there like 5:30 in the morning. And as I'm going through security, I look out and this big limousine pulls up and Joan Rivers gets out. And Joan Rivers walks up the ramp and she's got her handler with her and she's got a big old fur coat and it's cold and 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 I go back and I'm going, go, yeah. And so I'm in there getting ready and I'm nervous. And one of my nervous habits is cold hands. I don't sweat. I don't, because the studio has a million lights in it, but mine, for some reason, my cold hands is my nervous habit. So anyway, I get on there and my show's at 7:24 and I walk on the studio and there's Joan Rivers standing 10 feet in front of me. And there's a handler from each side and producer with the headphones on and they're right in front of her and they're standing. And all of a sudden, Joan leans over and she breaks wind. And her handlers who have headsets on heard her, if that gives you any idea how loud it was. And they turn around and they look at me and they go, she's 81 years old. And I say, okay. And she goes out on air. She does her spiel. And she's walking off. She high fives me. She said, go get him, kiddo.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there. And so I go out on the set and I present the Paloma shoe, which was our Mary Jane. And in 7 minutes, we sell $374,000 worth of that shoe. We basically sell out of it in 7 minutes. So I'm walking off the stage and there's a gentleman on behind me and it's Bob Mackey, who was the designer for Shares, all Shares clothing. And he's on after me. So I'm wedged in between Joan Rivers and Bob Mackey. And I walk off the set and I'm going, what just happened? And the producer told me in my earpiece, he said, great hit. You hit all your numbers. Matter of fact, you may have sold out. And I went, wow. And I didn't know what all this meant, Brad. I really didn't. I just did the best I could. Well, as I was walking out of the green room, I had to catch. I had a vehicle waiting for me to take me to the airport because it was 7:45 on a Saturday morning. Okay. Um, and everybody I knew was still in bed, you know. So I'm walking off the out of the green room, and this petite blonde lady with a broken foot is sitting there, and she stands up and she goes, "Hey," she said, "Are you the shoe guy?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Hi, I'm Lori Grenier." I said, "Hey, Lori." Well, Lori is on Shark Tank, and Lori owns over 400 patents with QVC. And Lori stood up. She said, "I hear your shoes are doing great." She said, "Congratulations." I said, "Thank you so much." I said, "Could I have a picture with you?" She said, "Sure." And I snapped a picture with her and I walked out. And as I'm walking through the empty building to catch my car, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I just sold $375,000 worth of shoes. I got farted on and high fived by Joan Rivers, and I got to talk to a billionaire. I said, "How's that for 8 o'clock in the morning?"
That is, well, I knew you'd be a great talent on TV. You
That
don't,
was it.
you probably didn't see it in yourself at the beginning. Now you know that you come across who you are.
Uh,
You don't put on any air. You could
Thank
make
you.
me laugh harder than anybody. And because you were real and you can kind of sense what people are thinking before they think it. And that's humility and the trials you've been through to make you like that. Uh,
I believe so.
yeah,
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 I do have, and you do this too, Brad. I think people in our position in life, in sales, and when you deal with enough people, you become very much immune to, not immune, but you become very absorbed in people's lives to the point where you can relate to anybody. I can relate to anybody, whether they're in destitute on the street,
yeah,
and I can feel their pain because I've been through
yeah.
similar situations, maybe not as extreme. I can also deal with people who are the head of Fortune 500 companies and who have been very successful. And I just, like you, I have the ability to be able to converse with people at all levels
And
because
not
of
be
what I've
intimidated.
no, and also humility. I think humility is very important. I said, I think you have to,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I really do because I've been in some situations that I had to pinch myself about because I said, you can't believe you're. I mean, I can't remember being on the motor coach talking with Anthony Edwards with
Yeah.
you and Reed, and that was, I mean, here I'm sitting here talking to the guy who was Goose and Hot in Top Gun, the original movie, and I'm sitting
Not
here talking with
ER.
him,
Yeah.
with you guys, and ER, yeah, and I mean, it's just it's been a very incredible, it's been an incredible journey I've been on, and I'm very, very fortunate. God's given me the ability to do what I've done and rebound and continue to come back. But once again, like I said earlier, you do not succeed by winning all the time. So that's the way it goes.
Well, it is so great to have you on, and I want to do this again
I
because
would love to.
I know a lot of people are going to listen to this and want to hear more.
Well, thank
I
you.
want to
I
be
don't.
inspired to do more because we don't get enough of that. We get, hey, pay 49.95 a month, and so real life stories. I'm so grateful that I'm so grateful for our friendship and that you were on today. And let's
Thank you.
do it again.
Well, you're very kind to have me on. It's a true honor. Like I said, the other day when I picked up the phone, when you called me, I didn't even say hi, Brad. I said, sure, I'll do it. Because I
That's
actually
right.
wanted the opportunity to do it because I just enjoy our company so much and our time together. And I'm so sorry that I haven't been able to take you fishing. I moved from the coast recently and my boat's still there, so don't give up on me yet. But I do
I,
love fish.
you've
Yeah.
seen Funny Farm with Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
That'd be like us in a boat. I get a hook in my mouth or throw one in yours, and so
That's
yeah.
okay. That's all part of fishing.
Yeah. All right. I love you, friend.
Thank you, brother. Love you too. Thank you
Okay.
for everything. You're the best.
See ya.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening today. Quite a segment. Please subscribe to our channel so you get all the latest updates and you can see all the past great stories of people who have overcome. I'm Brad Henry. Thank you for tuning in.